The founder of this curriculum spent months writing a detailed book about his family's history, hoping to pass down a legacy to his 15-year-old granddaughter. But when he handed it to her, she thumbed through the pages, looked up, and asked a question that stopped him cold. She asked, "Grandpa, why should I know that? What's in it for me?" It was a blunt question, but it hit a nerve. It was the same feeling he remembered having in middle school math class. Without a reason to care, the information was just noise. This reflects a tension found in many classrooms. A child asks why they need to learn something, and the default response is often a placeholder, because it's on the test. When a lesson lacks meaning, a child's natural curiosity can shut down. From that moment on, the teacher spends the rest of the hour pushing information uphill. This creates a state of silent compliance. Students might sit still and do the work, but they don't connect with the material. Educators pay the price as well. We see a cycle of teacher overload, where professionals burn their evenings and weekends trying to invent the why that standard textbooks skipped over. But what if we changed the sequence? What if we gave a child a reason to care before we asked them to remember? That is the driving philosophy behind meaning-first learning. It anchors facts to purpose, creating a structural reversal of the traditional educational order to support both the student and the teacher. We can see this in practice in their Grade 3 Social Studies curriculum. This page illustrates the opening unit, called Where in the World, focusing on global geography and culture through a split-world visualization. Prioritizing meaning does not mean lowering the bar. Every chapter maps to rigorous state benchmarks. The standards remain identical. We just change the experience of learning them. To do that, the curriculum introduces a recurring cast of characters. Instead of an invisible narrator, students learn alongside Grandpa Sidipi and his 3 grandchildren. This is intentional. Complex ideas are easier to absorb through human dialogue. Children are wired to learn through shared discovery, rather than reading dry, authoritative paragraphs. By replacing the faceless textbook voice with a trusted guide, the curriculum transforms standard historical facts into an unfolding adventure. Let's look at the repeatable 5-step framework using this teacher manual page. Step 1 is the hook. Instead of a vocabulary list, the lesson starts with a tension-building question. How does a place shape what people build? This leads to Step 2, the story. In the student book, the characters reason through the problem out loud. Step 3 is the meaning. The text highlights why this mattered, connecting local geography to survival and trade. Step 4, the practice. In the Explorer's Journal, children write out systems-level thinking to solve the problem. And Step 5, the check. These entries let the educator see comprehension forming in the moment, bypassing delayed quizzes. This 5-step rhythm ensures that curiosity is utilized to drive the daily momentum of the classroom. This addresses a core reality of school administration. Effective curriculum carries a specific value for districts. It returns time to their educators. Meaning, first learning respects a teacher's schedule by asking the lesson materials to carry the weight of student engagement. Because the hooks, narrative through lines, and discussion questions arrive ready to teach, educators see their evening hours return to them. Students stop sitting in silent compliance and start driving the conversation, bringing curriculum-based questions home to the dinner table. To be memorized. To address this, we look at the 2021 Minnesota Grade 3 Social Studies Standard 3.3.15.1. As shown here, the requirement is for students to identify the patterns of human populations in direct relation to natural resources. The Why the World Took Shape curriculum is designed as a direct response to this standard. It replaces the typical historical overview with a curriculum focused on geographic constraints and environmental problem solving. Meeting these standards involves shifting the student's role from a passive recipient of facts to an analyst of environmental variables. The instructional load is distributed across 3 physical artifacts: a student book, an explorer's journal, and a teacher manual. The teacher manual manages the compliance side. It maps the specific state standards and provides the structural rubrics for every lesson. The student book supplies the raw data. It provides the historical case studies and geographic variables that form the basis of the lesson. The explorer's journal serves as the inquiry layer. This is where students must externalize their thinking by drawing, writing, and applying the data they've read. When used together, these three books move a student from simply reading a narrative to performing a systems analysis. By separating the state standards from the student-facing content, the curriculum maintains academic rigor while allowing the student to focus on the active discovery. The curriculum is narrated by Grandpa Siddiqui, accompanied by three young explorers. His role is defined by a single instruction: don't memorize it, discover it. He operates through a Socratic process. In the Ask Grandpa module, the character is designed to answer student questions by posing a more specific counter-question. For example, a student might ask why ancient civilizations built their cities near the coast. Grandpa responds by asking the student what a person on the shore can access that a person living far inland cannot. This forces an 8-year-old to independently deduce the underlying logic of maritime trade and resource distribution. This framing moves the cognitive effort to the student, ensuring that the resulting understanding of spatial reasoning is rooted in their own deduction. In this system, geography is the primary constraint. It dictates the limits of what a human civilization can build and how its economy must function. These constraints are explored through 4 concurrent case studies: Al-Andalus, Mali, Malacca, and Aksum. Mali's geography presents a specific problem. The Sahara Desert acts as a massive barrier between the kingdom and the trading partners who need its resources. In Malacca, the constraint is seasonal. The alternating monsoon winds dictate exactly when ships can move. Aksum, meanwhile, utilizes a port and highland funnel linking Africa and Asia with the Mediterranean. By comparing these environments, students can map why certain physical locations inevitably become global trade hubs. Economic history is presented not as a collection of choices, but as a series of solutions to local weather and topography. These 4 examples teach students that human networks are a direct product of geographic reality. The curriculum then applies this systems thinking to civil engineering, focusing on how different cultures manipulate land and water to survive. In Al-Andalus, the solution involved heavy infrastructure, gravity-fed irrigation channels called acequias, and massive stone bridges to bring water into the city of Córdoba. Malacca faced the opposite problem: a surfeit of water, tidal marshes, and a total lack of stable ground for building. As this illustration shows, the engineers in Malacca responded by elevating the city on stilts and connecting it with a network of wooden boardwalks. In the highlands of Aksum, the challenge was capturing rainfall on steep slopes while preventing soil erosion. This resulted in a different engineering path, carving massive step terraces into the mountainside and erecting giant stone monuments as symbols of power. Students use these examples to analyze how different cultures solve the same basic resource constraints. Comparing these structures demonstrates that historical engineering is an exercise in resource management, where specific materials and terrain dictate the architecture of the solution. The Explorer's Journal then requires students to apply this analytical process to their own immediate environment. Through the systems detective framework, students must name a local geographic problem and devise a custom solution for it. An action step requires them to find a physical feature near their own home. The student then identifies the specific problem this feature creates. Finally, they must draft a plan, explaining why it would work, and acknowledging one trade-off. This exercise validates the historical study by proving that the same analytical frameworks can be used to understand the student's own surroundings. The 3 books of the curriculum function as a single instructional cycle, where standards, narrative, and application are synchronized. The base layer represents the teacher manual, which ensures every activity remains mapped to the state's social studies benchmarks. The vertical pillars represent the student book, which provides the geographic data and the narrative hook for each civilization. The intersection points represent the Explorer's Journal, where the student must use that data to solve engineering and economic problems. This structure allows the student to navigate complex academic requirements without relying on rote memorization. So every lesson is led by Grandpa Siddiqui, the chief explorer and trusted guide for the students. He is joined by a recurring cast of 3 children who act as proxies for the reader, asking the very questions a 3rd grader would ask. By using these consistent, friendly characters, The curriculum creates a warm environment where kids feel safe enough to tackle complex topics without hesitation. To make this work at scale, every lesson relies on a predictable engine made of 5 distinct steps. First is the hook, a question that sparks curiosity, followed immediately by the story, where students meet characters actually living the idea. Next comes meaning, which explicitly names why the concept matters to them, leading right into practice, where they explore the idea in their journals. Finally, there is the check. This step focuses on applied understanding. Students prove they can use the concept in a new context, moving beyond the limits of simple recall. Because the story and the questions change every time, the material always feels fresh for the child, while the underlying 5-step structure keeps lesson planning highly predictable for the teacher. When introducing narrative and empathy into a curriculum, a common administrative concern is that the academic standards might soften. Meaning-first learning addresses this directly. Every single state standard required for Grade 3 social studies is maintained and met within the material. The framework changes the experience of the classroom, but it never alters the expectations of rigor. This methodology also maps perfectly to the specific institutional values driving Fridley Public Schools. Starting a lesson with the student's own question is a direct application of being student-centered, and demanding deep comprehension over rote recall is exactly how Fridley defines rigor. Even the curriculum's first unit, where a child discovers he belongs to 2 different worlds, is built to practically demonstrate Fridley's value of belonging. This framework amplifies Fridley's existing institutional DNA. It functions as a natural extension of how the district already operates. There is one final Fridley value to address: partnership, and the belief that together we achieve more than we do alone. That is why Mustafa Siddiqui is bringing this framework forward today. He wants to partner with district leadership to refine this tool and bring it to more Fridley classrooms. So the honest question for Dr. Lewis is this: would a teacher of yours want to teach from this? By giving students raw variables and asking them to engineer solutions, the curriculum treats history as a laboratory for problem solving rather than a gallery of finished answers.